Hey, Drew.
I feel like I'm all disheveled
From the whiplash.
from the tariff whiplash today. We had all these show notes about tariffs, and 5 minutes ago, Trump what did he do? Did he cancel all the tariffs but China, which is a huge one? But I think that's what he did. Or did he leave it at 10% on everybody? And then
It looks
China's
like 10%. So this is like breaking news in the ear from our producers, or what? It's like as we're on the air about to opine on.
Hold on a second,
tariffs.
Mike. I'm being told by the
Exactly.
by the Nerd Marketing Podcast producer that yes, it's 10% on everything.
Yeah,
And
breaking news.
Yep,
Yeah,
120% on China.
Right. Delay on everybody else except China for 90 days. So through July, 10%. 10% on all those folks. And then, raising it on China.
10% during those 90 days?
Looks like it.
Okay. We're going to have the producers the producer look into this. Who's my wife in the other room?
Right.
But the market, like I'm sitting here on another call and I've got the stocks up on like a little Bloomberg terminal here. And all of a sudden the Vanguard total stock goes, which I watch as like a proxy of the market, goes up like 9%.
Right.
Yeah. What the hell just happened? Trump did something. He broke, And now it's debate like, did he cave or did he always want to do this? I don't know. But I'm looking at Shopify up 20%. It was down this morning. It's now up 20%. Amazon up 10. Klaviyo up 11. These are all our peeps, right?
Yep.
The Shopify up 20. I mean, I watch that one as a proxy for DTC.
Same.
Right? Those are our customers. So whether it's rational or not, up 20%. And I don't think that actually is that rational, because if you had to guess, what percent of D2C is importing from China, it's high. It's got to be like
huge.
80, 90%.
Yeah, at least some components, at least some products. We talked to a ton of our apparel brand customers, and they have multiple supply chain spread across multiple countries, but China's almost always at least a piece of it.
And if anything, that, so that one country got worse in this announcement.
Right.
So Shopify up 21%. So
but there's hope.
I don't know if that means to short Shopify or just who knows. I mean, we record about a week before the podcasts go live, and how many times can this thing change in the next 7 days? But as of today, on the 9th, Trump just made an announcement that the tariffs are 10%, blanket 10% for everybody, 125% for China. So what does that mean to D2C brands?
Well, I think there's people still need to be prepared, right? Like, aside from the fact that China still persists as an issue, and who knows if this is going to reverse course again at some point soon. But I think our experience, particularly with turnarounds, is really applicable here, because it's all about tightening up your financials, creating more cash flow, all things that are going to be really important for brands that are navigating the tariff situation or other sort of economic and supply chain volatility.
Yeah, so we've got a great book called Turnaround Tips. Gives you a tip a day for 30 days. We'll put a link in the show notes. I think it's at postpilot.com/turnaround. But I mean, some quick wins. If you think about your business as a turnaround, some of the things you got to do, right out of the gates. I think, and certainly given the situation here and how quickly things could change, um, I'd probably start looking at like where I can cut costs, generally speaking, getting the company as profitable as I can over the next couple months.
OpEx costs, though, I think the thing that people default to too quickly is slashing marketing spend. And that feels good for a week, maybe a month. And you really start paying for it 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and a year when your top of funnel has essentially dried up and you're no longer seeing,
Right.
seeing the customer acquisition numbers that you were projecting. So OpEx is the starting point. You, hold off on marketing spend.
I think
That
one
goes
of the
for any
points
channel.
one of the points we make, which is taken from Bob Pfeiffer, HBS professor, is divide your business into strategic and non-strategic costs. Strategic costs are the ones that drive revenue. So sales, marketing, typically. But certainly in different lines of work, it can be different parts of the business. Non-strategic costs are things that you just kind of have to do to stay in business, but they're not driving the top line. Bookkeeping,
HR.
HR. So, I've seen people do it on a P&L or even just mentally, but you've got your strategic costs. General rule of thumb there: keep paying, and in fact, you often want to be top of market. If you're talking about compensation, you want to pay up for talent there, and you want to minimize your non-strategic costs. I mean, it sounds intuitive, but now would be a good time to kind of do those two buckets. Look at all your expenses, in that arena of non-strategic costs. What can you automate, outsource? There's so many new AI tools. Like I'd immediately start looking there and trying to think of what is core to my business, what skill sets are core around marketing, around merchandising that I want to leave in house, and what I could offload.
Yep. I think on the marketing side, a couple of the investments that you want to place a little more emphasis around is that retention, those retention channels. So obviously squeezing more juice from more LTV from your existing customer base is going to be highly accretive from a profitability standpoint. And then sort of reactivation before you continue to scale up on paid spend. So one thing that we've done really effectively, and actually was part of the genesis of Postpilot, was the strategy of we'd go into these businesses that had 5 million customers in their customer database, going back years, decades in some cases. They were not engaged anymore with the brand, like they hadn't purchased in years. They weren't engaged in email anymore. By now they'd unsubscribed or they haven't opened an email in months or years. Like they're just not active in the brand. But what we consistently found was those people can be woken up. And when you get back in front of them and find a way to reactivate them, it tends to be at a much lower CAC than cold prospect. So going back and finding and getting that customer from 3 years ago to remember you and come back, it's essentially new customer acquisition at this point. We consider customers sort of completely defected at a year or 2 years for most brands. So you go back and get a 3-year-old customer to come back at a CAC that's like half of what a cold prospect would be. That's a big win for a brand.
Yeah. So I think general rule of thumb: start back of the funnel, start dial in your retention before you spend a dime on acquisition. And now is just a great time to do that because it means like you're making positive ROI investments. To Mike's point, once you've got your email dialed in does not mean you've got retention dialed in. You've got to go beyond that. SMS, direct mail. I would start there before I even start on Facebook or on direct mail prospecting. So dial that, then go to retargeting next, and then and only then kind of move to acquisition. But now's a great time to do it. Make sure you've got your lifetime value maximized, because that's where you're going to make your money. And especially now with so much uncertainty, you want that sort of profit buffer in case your supply channels immediately fall off. We also talk about like taking costs out of the business on the IT side. We talk a lot in this book about cutting any IT projects that take longer than 6 months. We talk about moving from in-house development to off-the-shelf. Those decisions that you've probably been putting off, maybe now would be a good time to kind of take them head on before the holidays. Like if you're operating headless, if you've got an internal dev team and you feel like you need to do it to enhance the front end experience, really take a hard look at that and compare it up against just running an out-of-the-box Shopify installation. Shopify Klaviyo gets you so much on the cost side there.
Test pricing. So now is the time you're going to need to figure out how elastic or inelastic your pricing or your customers are. So you can test different price points. You could potentially split test different price points. There's other ways to creatively think about adding value. So maybe you're bundling. You're increasing base pricing, but if you bundle and get the AOV up, then you get a discount, and it's more commensurate with what your previous pricing was. So give people the perception of more value. You're increasing pricing, but is there a free offer, a free gift, free offer that you can include with that? And it doesn't even always need to be something tangible. In some cases, maybe you're giving away a free hat, that's a $20 value. It costs you $2. And you've increased prices by $5, but now you're increased, $5, but now you're giving away a $2 hat with a $20 perceived value. Like that's a way to test into it. Even service-based add-ons. So, a free, virtual consultation with purchase of your product.
Yep.
So, $100 value. You've increased the price of your product by 10%, but you're going to offer this additional value, high perceived value, but low cost to actually deliver, and bundle that in with your pricing. There's a lot of ways, creative ways that you can test price increases that soften the blow for customers. What we're seeing, some feedback I've been seeing that isn't working is when we've already started seeing people adding like the tariff surcharge to the checkout. And it seems like people are having a pretty negative reaction to that. They're like, this isn't, it's not my problem that you have to make more money. So you're adding 10% or 20% of the value of my cart just in a surcharge. Do it through, again, strategic testing of price increases, but wrapping that in other ways to increase the value, the perceived value of the customer.
I think that's interesting. I wonder if brands, this is more of a long-term solution, but you think about we talk a lot about overdependence on one acquisition channel or one marketing channel like Meta, and how important it is to diversify. I feel like that lesson's come and keeps hitting us over the head, starting with iOS 14 and 21, but every couple months we get hit over the head again. Same thing for supply chains. Like, can you diversify your supply chain? Easier said than done, certainly easier than spinning up a new marketing channel, but either diversifying that supply chain now would be a good time, or even if you've got some capital, investing in more inventory and taking some inventory to help you weather the ups and downs that have been here the past week.
Yep. Those are, I think, some of our top immediate actions that you can take. But we've got a ton more in the turnaround book that I think is really applicable to brands right now. We're trying to shore up their balance sheet, shore up their P&L, and make sure that, again, if these are going to persist, at a minimum, you're able to keep the lights on and wait this thing out. I don't think it's going to go on forever.
Hope not. especially for those who are importing from China.